Good afternoon. My name is Trevor Scott. I'm a member of the City Club Youth Council Forum. I am a senior at John Hay Early College, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this afternoon's forum on the academic achievement gap. Today with us we have Dr. Frederick M. Hampton. He's one of the leading proponents of decreasing the achievement gap or educational disparity in Cleveland's inner-city public school system. Dr. Hampton's commitment to students is displayed throughout his impressive tenure as a teacher. Dr. Hampton began working at Cleveland State University. Hampton fostered his goals of improving the graduation rates, school attendance, and academic opportunities of young adults in Cleveland. We also are joined by Dr. Cordelia Harris. She is the principal of the Promise Academy, an institution devoted to helping people of all backgrounds secure a regular high school diploma and receive opportunities for a graduate program. An employee of the Cleveland Metropolitan School System since 1973, Dr. Harris has been at the forefront of the city's education for decades. Dr. Harris is confident that Cleveland schools possess the innate capacity to achieve on a high level. A confidence of hard work and tenacity is what is needed to augment overall student performance. So please welcome Dr. Hampton and Dr. Harris.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy and honored to be here today. I've actually looked forward to this for the past several weeks, and I'm so glad to see all of you. I've been invited to share a few brief comments regarding the achievement gap. And generally speaking, the achievement gap is the average difference in academic performance between children of color, who are primarily Black and Hispanic, and other students who are primarily white and Asiatic. Now, clearly there is a difference, and one can pick up almost any data source as evidence. One of the more recent data sources of evidence came in the Plain Dealer, August 25 of this year, where they issued a review of the Northeast Ohio School District report cards. There were 97 school districts in this report. Of the districts included, the absolute bottom three were Cleveland, East Cleveland, and Warrensville Heights. Now, these three districts are predominantly districts that have Black and Hispanic students. And that has been the racial and academic trend for a number of years. Now, you may sit there and say, well, that's all very interesting, but why should I care? Some of you might say that you don't live in Cleveland, don't live in East Cleveland, don't live in Warrensville Heights, and you never plan to. You might even take some comfort in the idea that if and when you ever have children, that you would never send your children to one of those districts. And you may be fortunate enough in your day-to-day lives that on a personal basis, you're never affected by the problems of inner-city schools. That's possible, but there's more to consider. If one were to examine some other important data about the achievement gap, there's also evidence that these three districts have the highest percentages of student dropouts, single-parent households, unemployment among both youth and adults. This should matter to you because while these statistics may not describe your neighborhood, they do describe large portions of your society. And regardless of where you live, what you do, regardless of your political and your religious beliefs, you will help to pay for, and you will be affected by society within and outside your immediate community. Once Dr. Martin Luther King addressed an audience, and I can imagine that it was an audience filled with bright young minds such as we see here today. He posed a question, and the question was, who is the most dangerous man in America? And so I'll ask you the same question. Who is the most dangerous man in America? Now, it was a rather rhetorical question, but he did give the answer. And his answer was, the most dangerous man in America is the man with nothing to lose. When growing numbers of members of society are poorly educated, they have fewer legal options for employment, fewer options for higher education and technical training, fewer avenues to support their children, and fewer realistic hopes and dreams for a better life. In short, the most poorly educated members of our society more quickly become men and women who have nothing to lose. So if you wake up one morning and find that you are surrounded by large numbers of people who have nothing to lose, then you are in danger of losing everything that's important to you. There are two other ideas that Dr. King put forth that I think are applicable today, and I'll paraphrase these. He said that you can never truly be rich as long as others are poor, and you can never be everything that you ought to be unless you are willing to help others to be everything that they ought to be. Now, if you believe in those ideas, the questions become, what can I do about it? Well, for now, you're doing the right things. Continue your education, continue to be good sons and daughters, continue to be good citizens. But as you transition into adulthood, become good parents, good neighbors, and good community members who have a strong sense of honesty, integrity, fairness, equity, charity, and social responsibility. Now, I began my comments by pointing out that an achievement gap does exist, and I shared some insights as to why I think it should be important to you. Although I do believe the achievement gap should be important to you, it should be a lot more important to someone else, those that are most directly and most negatively affected by it, the children of color themselves. Now, I'm going to conduct a quick two-part experiment. Can anyone give me one explanation as to why, on average, the children in the three school districts I mentioned have lower academic performance than other school districts? One answer? Yes. Low-income students who come from low-income families, absolutely. I'll even take another answer. Yes, sir. Social expectations. I saw another hand. I will take one more. Yes. Lack of parental involvement. Okay, very good. That was part one of the experiment. Now for part two. Did you know that every year, some of those same students that were just described, that come from single-parent, low-income, low-family homes with communities that have low expectations, acquire full academic scholarships, partial academic scholarships, and general admission to some of the most prestigious universities, colleges, technical schools, and military academies in the United States? More precisely, the class that graduated in June of this year, there are students from that class in Cleveland who will attend across the country 123 different colleges and universities, ranging from California to the East Coast. Some of the schools on that list include USC, Johns Hopkins, Case Western Reserve, Cleveland State, the University of Cincinnati, Morehouse and Columbus, Howard University, a very, very long and impressive list of places where these children will go to pursue their higher education that came from these same schools. And from these institutions, the students from Cleveland have earned more than have earned in combination more than $1.5 million in scholarships and grants. So the next question is, why do these students from these same desperate circumstances experience so much academic success? How do you do that? Right. That's the second part of my experiment. So it's easy to explain why children don't succeed when they come from desperate circumstances. It's more difficult to understand how children do succeed when they come from desperate circumstances. And it might appear that the answer is complex, but it is not. In a few minutes, my friend and colleague, Dr. Harris, is going to provide some answers to why these students experience so much academic success. But in the meantime, I want you to know that you here today are a big part of the reason. You are parts of the reasons why students from Cleveland, East Cleveland, and Warrensville do demonstrate high academic achievement. Now, some of you come from places that you should be very, very proud of. You're very fortunate and blessed if you come from two-parent homes, if you come from homes where your parents are very well educated. And that should be the case for everyone, but it is not. And even if those are your circumstances, you still did the work yourselves. But there are others in the room who will go home tonight to neighborhoods that are not so safe. You won't go home to two parents. You will go home to streets where you can easily hear the pop-up gunfire, where you can easily see drug deals being made, yet you get up every morning, you do what you have to do, you carry on, and you understand that there is a better life. Now, how do you do that? I know because I asked. I didn't ask any of the students in this room because I don't know you. But I've spent a lot of time asking children from city schools who experience desperate circumstances how they do it. And they told me that there are 7 things that they had to acquire that helped them to sustain themselves and opened up all the doors for them. 1, they have to have, and they do have, self-respect. They have the ability to master standard English. They have the ability to set goals for themselves. They're self-motivated. They have strong time management skills. They have a sense of consequence awareness. And perhaps most importantly, they have respect for other people. That's it. That's how you got here. That's how you did it. If you think about those 7 things that the students have told me, the thing that's most interesting about those 7 secrets to success is that none of them come with a price tag. You cannot put a dollar amount, a price tag on the importance of having self-respect, the ability to turn off street language. You cannot put a price tag on the value of respecting other people. That's what I wanted to tell you. The achievement gap is a problem. It's not an unsolvable problem, but it's unique in that we cannot buy our way out of this one. However, we can get out of it, but we do have to become determined that we adults are going to work our way out with the children that are facing the most difficult circumstances. Thank you. I've enjoyed my day here.
It's wonderful to be in the company of so many lovely, bright faces. At this time, I would like to take this moment to thank the City Club, the oldest continuous speaker series in the nation, for this unparalleled experience of speaking on a theme that is dear and near to my heart, addressing the achievement gap. As Dr. Frederick Hampton of Cleveland State University has presented, there exists a well-documented achievement gap between suburban majority and urban minority students. I will not add to that discussion or problem. I will address the solution. I can only be the expert on what we at our school have experienced and the results we have seen. Promise Academy is a public charter high school sponsored by the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Though a charter school, we still are part of the district. It's new and innovative schools. Our school is a non-traditional one using a hybrid of a web-based curriculum with certified teachers on site that serve as mentors and tutors. Being non-traditional, we offer our student body of 503 students a choice of 3 daily 3-hour sessions, which start at 9 a.m. and end at 5 p.m. During these sessions, students complete coursework and meet their teachers, work with their teachers and mentors. Promise Academy has an open enrollment policy, and our student body comes from all over Cuyahoga County. But the majority of the students live right here in Cleveland and formerly attended Cleveland schools. We very much are a non-traditional high school. Our students range from the ages of 16 to 22. Many of our students, being 2 or more grade levels behind, enter with a 95% chance of becoming a dropout. Having been appointed as the new principal of Promise Academy a little over a year ago, I shortly found that my new address was squarely in the middle of the achievement gap. I read in the Plain Dealer on October 25th, 2010, that Promise Academy actually was one of the 7 charter schools that was on the endangered list to close due to experiencing 4 straight years of receiving the status of academic emergency from the Ohio Department of Education. The achievement gap became very real at that moment when I came to work that morning and looked into the faces of my students and my faculty. The article stated that CMSD was sending a seasoned administrator to take over. I didn't even know I was seasoned. With the seriousness of our situation staring at us in black and white, and the realization that should Promise Academy close, our students would lose out on their chance to close their own opportunity gap. In order to keep the promise to students, which is our school pledge, our teachers, administrators, and staff got down to seeking real solutions to our real problems. 3 solutions and themes quickly surfaced. Number 1, there can be no knowledge without discipline. Number 2, there can be no engagement without innovation. Number 3, there can be no advancement without accountability. In taking time to recount how we tackled these themes over last year, some insights might be gained in how one school can work to close the achievement gap. We began last year with the firmly held belief that there can be no knowledge without discipline. From the beginning of our journey, my assistant principal and I had daily focus groups to find out from our teachers what was working and what was not. And the teachers were very engaged in this activity and gave us rich insights. Our teachers brought out the fact that according to the Conditions for Learning survey, we needed to address student behavior first. As stated early, many of our students come to us with a 95% risk factor for dropping out. For a number of years, some of our students found their success in a variety of ways of acting out and in behaviors that sidetrack their own and others' learning. By strictly enforcing our theme that there can be no knowledge without discipline, we quickly cracked down on behaviors that were high risk for failure, such as excessive talking, bullying, dressing to disrespect, or intimidation. There became a zero tolerance for profanity of any sort. By enforcing this theme of no knowledge without discipline, we were teaching the students that they needed to look to a new superlative for personal rather than peer success. More than behavior, we had to address academic discipline. The old model at Promise Academy allowed students to work on whatever subject they wanted over their daily 3-hour session. Naturally, it was determined that students were avoiding working on science and math courses and saving them for last. Much like eating your broccoli last, saving all of your math classes for the final burst usually meant that you left important learning on your plate. We quickly implemented a new model that structured how students paced their own learning, making sure that all subject areas were completed. But just enforcing a dress code, a profanity policy, and an academic pacing plan would not in themselves elevate our school past academic emergency. Our faculty and staff embraced our second theme of there can be no engagement without innovation. Though a charter school, we are still part of the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. By our school being designated as one of the new and innovative schools, we were partnered with high-achieving schools such as the John Hay campus schools and the STEM schools. And though I wanted to hide my data in myself under the table at the first couple of meetings, these opportunities for peer involvement forced us, like we were doing with our students, to academically stretch a little higher. Oftentimes, things we learned by noon were presented to our staff by 3 p.m. And not only were we looking outward for innovations, we started looking closely inward. As a newly assigned principal last year, I started out by calling over 40 returning students to interview them about their experience at Promise Academy. The prevailing issues centered around the lack of social life and that there was no food served during their 3-hour session. Being a non-traditional school, we were still dealing with traditional issues of every high school. And though it took some creative planning by offering a winter ball and a spring fling, our students began to be more engaged about school. The food complaint was easy to address We just threw out some snack bars and juice, and this went a long way of giving the students the extra energy they needed and also the feeling that someone cared. We further realized that students in our school can easily disassociate from each other and that they grow up too quickly in the world. So we implement Fun Fridays, where students recapture the joy of their youth, participating in hula hoop and jump rope contests. Also, they were able to participate in talent competitions, including singing and rapping. But we further worked hard to innovatively engage our students by reshaping the image of their futures. In order to build additional academic engagement, we quickly worked with Terry Butler of Tri-C to establish a collaborative partnership known as the Promise Connection. Last fall, we took our seniors 3 times to Cuyahoga Community College Metro Campus to let them see themselves standing on a college campus with access to information on everything necessary for college readiness and success, even including their financial aid packages. Looking forward, we have learned that we need to do more to assist our students to self-regulate around school, work, parenting, and oftentimes legal issues. We have recently become a part of a challenge grant that provides on-site wraparound services to help students that are dealing with a myriad of health and social issues. When we are innovative about the Amish proverb, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, students will engage in their own learning and their own lives. But to close the academic achievement gap, we needed to move beyond discipline and even beyond engagement. We needed to embrace our third theme: there can be no advancement without accountability. Our teaching staff moved quickly not only to support discipline and engagement, but to take responsibility for our student performance. Our teachers stepped up to the plate with 8 straight weeks of individual tutoring prior to the March Ohio graduation test. All teachers, regardless of their discipline, stressed the importance of writing skills. This emphasis paid big dividends in March, improving the 10th grade writing scores by 32%. All staff were assigned a list of 20 students to mentor for their preparation and for making sure that their students showed up for testing. This mentor list was made public and became a major competition between staff to see what teacher was first at having all of their students to complete their OGTs. Additionally, transportation was arranged for some hard-to-reach students. We had teachers go out and knock on doors 5 times to get the students out for testing, and we also had a secretary take her car seat out of her car and put it in a teacher's car to pick up a child with a baby to bring her in for testing. The administrating and monitoring of OGTs provided optimal testing conditions. Incentives were abundant to help produce the desired outcomes. For instance, students that had perfect attendance during OGT test week were eligible to win gift cards. Prior to testing, we had cheerleaders scheduled to march students to academic victory. 99% of all 10th grade graders scheduled to take OGT at Promise Academy completed them. Under the skilled leadership of 2 guidance counselors, the addition of a school psychologist, and our data-driven teachers, we were able to individually track counsel all students, which led to qualifying 64 students for graduation. 64 students who would not have known the promise of a high school diploma unless our faculty and staff embrace the theme that they cannot have no advancement without accountability. And what have been the results of this year-long experiment in closing the achievement gap? Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to announce that in the 2010-2011 school year, for the first time in the history of Promise Academy, our state report card now reads continuous improvement.
Good afternoon. My name is Cameron Dempsey, a member of the City Club Youth Forum Council. I'm a junior at Orange High School, and today at this City Club of Cleveland Youth Forum, we are listening to Dr. Frederick Hampton and Dr. Cordelia Harris. We will return to our speakers in just a few minutes, but first we encourage you to formulate questions for our speakers now while we break for a few announcements. We welcome you to the City Club Forum, part of the traditional City Club, which began in 1912. It is the oldest continuous running free speech forum in the country. We welcome you. Today's City Club Youth Forum is made possible through the grants from the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation, the Bruning Foundation, the Stocker Foundation, and the William Weiss Foundation, and the Thomas White Foundation. We would like to thank our funders for their generous support. The City Club Youth Forum series is planned by a council of students from several area high schools. I would like to thank the members of the council whose names are in the program. Also, please note that there are surveys and pencils on your tables. Please begin filling these out, and we will collect them when you leave. Now, we would like to return to our speakers for our traditional questions and answers. To ask a question, and it must be questions only, please raise your hand. And as a courtesy, please stand, state your name and school, and hold your applause until the end of our program. Our microphone holders are Aaron Mann of Hathaway Brown School and Brianna Gilliam of Washington Park Environmental Studies Academy. Thank you. I have a question for Dr. Harris. I was wondering, how exactly did you identify the problems you found among the student body, and how did you come up with a solution to them?
Thank you. We did have our conditions for learning survey, but again, at the beginning of the speech or somewhere in the speech, I said that I called 40 of the returning students to check in with them to see what the problems they were having in terms of their view. But actually, before I arrived at the school, I already knew that there were many academic challenges because the school report card had read academic emergency for the 4 straight years. So actually looking at where the students are coming from, the number of transcripts, how many years they've been out of school, how overage they are. So it's kind of like a compilation of all those factors. But it's a very good question you're asking, and we need to communicate more with our students, and some of our students are here today, and I actually meet with them every morning to find out what the problem of the day is.
My name is Desiree. I attend High Tech Academy, and my question is, how can youth help bridge the gap between the achievement gap?
Go ahead, you start.
One of the ways that I think it's important for me, Mr. Hill, Mr. Butler, Dr. Harris, any of us adults, is actually to spend time doing more about the problem than talking about it, to be able to actually spend time in the schools with the children, with the parents, helping to do things that will make a difference. I think we've pretty much reached a point where we all have become tired of hearing people make speeches about what they are going to do and what's going to happen tomorrow. I would rather align myself with people who are actually doing things first and talking about them second than talking first and never getting around to doing anything.
This past Sunday, at the dedication of the Martin Luther King Monument, President Barack Obama did say that he wanted all students in the nation to have a world-class education, to keep striving and struggling for that. My answer to closing the achievement gap is that when people are measuring things, remember that the one thing that they cannot measure is desire. If you have the desire, where there's a will, there's a way. And don't let anyone tell you you cannot be a doctor, you cannot be an attorney. You can be just about anything that you're willing to plan and work for, because that's what you're going to get.
My name is Morgan from Laurel School, and I'm wondering what we as students can do to help lower the achievement gap.
I think, Morgan, that it depends on how close you are to the situation actually. Please know that everyone, all of you, can do something. I think for the children in the districts that have the lowest student achievement, they really simply need to look inside themselves and understand that all of their power and all of their ability is not based in the budget of a school district. It's not based in the money that comes from a governor's office. It's based on what Dr. Harris just said, a person's individual ability and willingness and their own desire. If you are not a student in one of the lower performing districts, I think long-term, some of the things that I mentioned earlier, you simply have to try to be a good citizen who recognizes that everyone shares in social responsibility, and conduct yourselves and your friends, help them, advise them to conduct themselves with a sense of fairness, equity, and opportunity for everyone.
Yes, I would encourage you to think globally and act locally. And by that I mean there's many opportunities to tutor students. If you have that gift for math or science, some of our students are struggling, you can tutor. But sometimes just telling someone that you can be a good student. It doesn't have to be just tutoring. It can be just telling them that you can be something, you can be somebody.
My name is Norris Mays. I'm from Max Hayes Career Tech High School. My question is for Ms. Harris. What are some of the circumstances you've heard from some of your students that kept them from graduating from a traditional high school?
Excellent question. At the beginning, I almost wanted to talk about non-school factors that cause trouble for other children that maybe some of you in the room have, like a roof over your head, dinner when you go home, or possibly, you know, just clothes. Last week I had a student that said she couldn't come to school because she didn't have a pair of shoes. And naturally our staff rallied around to get the clothes and the shoes. Many issues for our young ladies are that they're teen parents, and the child care issues knock them right out of school. Again, I have students that are homeless, so you know, when a teacher says there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have done your homework, well, if you were living in a car or not knowing where you were going to be the next day, there are reasons why students cannot self-regulate around school. Many of our students have jobs, so self-regulating around school, work, jobs, and parenting is a very tricky act.
Hi, my name is Jasmine, and I'm a senior at Shaker. In my opinion, the achievement gap starts at the age 0 through 5 when it comes to child care and minorities not having enough quality child care than their white counterparts. So as far as mentorship programs, and how do we find a way to address the younger age group when it comes to the achievement gap on a non-academic level?
I just want to jump in with one comment. You're absolutely right about the child care. It is only 1 in 4 chance for young minority children to have preschool. And they know that at age 30, when they look at someone that had preschool, they're doing probably twice as well as someone who didn't. And now, with all the government cuts, we're in a situation where we're going to have to cut the things that we know will cause success for our students later on.
And you really cannot separate you could identify the various components that contribute to the achievement gap, but you cannot isolate them to the extent that one causes another, or one is more important than another. All of the elements that will cause a child to not be successful at an early age, and you mentioned the idea of prenatal care or poor prenatal care through age 5 being negative impacts. That is true. Those factors also do have to do with decisions to become young mothers, so helping students to make better decisions about their interactions with each other, helping students to break the chain of poverty, of poor education. And it may sound like it's too big of a job, but I think the way that it will happen is with an understanding that it's not going to happen tomorrow. It took 30, 40 years for Cleveland to get to the state where it is economically and socially now, and it might take half that time to turn things around. Thank you.
Yeah, the Johnson administration had the war on poverty in the 60s, so this is not anything new. We have been struggling with this a long time.
I'm Antonio from High School, and a junior. I was wondering, how would you like, what kind of ideas would you give to teachers to motivate their students that are below the achievement gap?
Okay. Well, as a principal, I'll be meeting with my staff at 3 o'clock. Actually, 2 today because we have early dismissal. So it's real important that teacher training help students achieve in a model that is not always congruent to their background. Like the home pedagogy has to match the school pedagogy for children really to be successful, so they know what you're talking about in the context of what you mean. So cultural competency is a good place to start for all teachers. And whether a teacher is black or white, they still need to be culturally competent, because you may not live on the same street where your students come from.
I think occasionally, although we try to focus on the most important things within school as far as instruction, sometimes I think we need to consider where we start. All of you sitting in here, you guys are successful students in part because you want to learn. It's easy to teach a child who wants to learn. The achievement gap, a large part of it occurs when you are trying to teach students who don't care yet whether they learn or not. So getting teachers to find mechanisms to help students care whether or not they learn. I think it's more important to teach a child skills that will acquire them to become successful students first, and then worry about your actual instruction of the content afterwards. I mentioned a few minutes ago, students like yourselves who have self-respect, respect for others, time management skills, consequence awareness, strong command of standard English, the ability to motivate yourselves, you have acquired those skills. So then you have the ability to attend your classes and learn and perform well. I think there are attitudes, behaviors, and skills that have to be taught to children who are not successful before they can become academically successful. If I don't want to learn, I guarantee you, you cannot teach me.
That is so true. The other issue is just that we're doing now at Promise Academy a book club, particularly for our male students, because if you pull them out to say you're going to do some remedial reading, you know, nobody wants to come to that. But we're going to start this month a book club for just our males at Promise, because there's even a gender way of interacting with learning. And I will say something for the minority girls. They seem to be getting the message. No matter what happens, they will struggle back to school. But we have to do better with our minority males, because some of the life lessons that they learn, they will not come back to school.
Hi, my name is Justin Lee from Max Hayes High School. And my question is, do you think it's the students' fault to blame for this significant gap, or is there various reasons?
No, I definitely do not think it's the students' fault. Particularly in this country, we can study that there is a history of how minority and non-minority children were educated from the very beginning of this country, and it definitely was separate and unequal in many times. So please don't ever think that if you see a student that's not achieving, that it's all that student's fault. Many times it's because things were not normed in a way that the student could be successful. To give you an example, when I had my own child, they had an IQ test. It's like, do you play under chairs with a sheet over the chair, or do you play in a yard? Well, at that time, we were living on the 13th floor of an apartment building, and she did not play in the yard. So I realized I needed to get a house with a picket fence, because to understand the text for tests and quizzes, a lot of times it's based on something that you haven't been exposed to. So let's not blame the person that has, you know, almost like blaming the victim.
I agree that it is not the student's fault. But when I think about the achievement gap, I picture a bridge that is the connection between two different spaces, and there's a deep gap between. And the children who are not succeeding are on this side of the gap, and the children who are succeeding are on this side. And I think that there are 4 parts, there are 4 planks in that bridge that have to be crossed in order for students to become successful. I think one of those planks includes the school, which includes the teachers and administrators. They have absolutely got to be the best. The second plank is the community. The community must be supportive of the schools. The third plank are the homes and the parents. Parents, homes, they have to have as much of an interest in the students being successful as the schools do. But the final plank, maybe the most important, would be the students themselves. You must bring something to the table. You have to come to school with an attitude that you want to learn, you want to be successful, and you want to have a better life than perhaps you have had an opportunity to see. Now, if either one of those 4 parties breaks, the child is still not going to be successful. So, is it the student's fault? No. But does the student have an obligation? Absolutely.
My comment on that is like, I tell my students, you have to stop fighting each other, stop fighting in the community, and start fighting for your education. Because nobody's going to give you anything. You have to take your education, take that opportunity. Our ancestors fought and died so we could sit at these tables, and then to come to school or not come to school, or when you come to school to try to have some type of gangster mentality, we just cannot tolerate. It's very important that you realize attendance is the #1 factor that will knock you out of the box for getting an education. You must come to school every day to pass standardized tests, because these power tests are very difficult, and that 1 point that you missed could be on that day when you stayed home.
Hi, my name is Terry Caslow. I'm from Shaw High School, and I'm in 11th grade. My question to either one of you is, what were you like in high school, and what helped you become an achiever?
I was a cheerleader. And I'm from New Jersey, in case you didn't pick up the accent. East Coast. I was in every committee known to man in high school and college. I was in student government, president of this, president of that. And it actually gives you some skills that you will need later on, because many things that you need to be successful in life you can't learn out of a textbook. So I implore you all to do all those extra things. You learn how, you know, when you're captain of cheerleader, you know how to keep people in line.
I'll be quite honest, I was not a great student in high school. I was fortunate in that where I grew up, and it's probably very different from where you guys grew up. I grew up in the country in North Carolina. And as a child, my mother was a maid, housekeeper, and not one of those mighty maid people who get paid lots of money. She was a maid who did not get paid lots of money. And my father was a construction worker. The thing that made me be a good student in high school, one was the expectations of these wonderful parents that I had. 2, it was the love and fear of those wonderful parents that I had. So I probably was a better student than I wanted to be, not because I had the strongest academic ability, but I was fortunate enough to come from parents who basically were not financially and economically successful, but they were 2 of the most spiritually and family-oriented, successful people you have ever met or you would ever meet. And basically, I probably had no choice other than to succeed academically.
Yeah, just to comment, my dad told me if I didn't do well in college, he was going to send me in the service. So I was kind of afraid of the military back then in 1968, not where you wanted to be. So, and we had 5 students in college at the time. We have a lot of stair steps in our family, grew up with 9 kids. And so my mom and dad did not play about grades. It was like, you know, if I didn't do well in college and my financial scholarships, I went on all scholarships, would have been terminated. So I pretty much graduated magna cum laude and all like that because, you know, not thank you, Lordy, like some people, because I knew that I had to get those good grades to stay in college.
Hi, my name is Tierra Sanders. I go to John Adams. My question is, how do you learn when the maximum number of students in the class is 35 to 50 students in one class, and how does my teacher teach me?
He wants me to go first.
I do want you to go first.
He wants me to go first. I've taught an array of subjects from physical education to science, tutor biology. What I find when you have a teacher talent in front of you, that the students react pretty much positively, but it is harder. I personally could teach 35 students. I have taught more successfully. However, everyone doesn't have the strength, and they're not as loud as I am, you know, because I can cause someone permanent hearing loss if they act up in my class because I'm that loud. But what I'm saying is it's not the best situation, but historically throughout the country, 35 was pretty much what the classrooms were built for. And then we got into this phase of making small class sizes, but 35 is not that atypical for a classroom around the nation.
And I would say if you're in a class of 40 to 50 children,
That's when it gets rough.
Okay. If you're in a class of 40 to 50 children, you should not be in that situation. And a lot of adults for a great number of years have actually made lots of bad decisions and pretty much failed, at least in that component. But what can you do about it? You know, it might not be hard to teach 50 children. It might not be hard to teach a class of 75 children if they all come in there and they want to learn. Then you can teach that class. But when you've got 50 children and some want to learn and some don't care whether they learn or not, or more importantly, they may not want you to learn, that's when the circumstances become difficult. So a couple things maybe that you could do. One, because you appear to be a young lady who has outstanding leadership potential to me, perhaps you could use your influence on the students and have a meeting with them, with the teacher not present, with the administrators not present, just you and them, and see if you all can talk about the situation that you're in, what can you do about it, and the type of class environment that you want to have. That's probably not a great answer, but I also know that you may have to live with those circumstances longer than you care to. So I would say test your own leadership ability, informal, and see what you can do about helping to change the attitude and the environment of the students that's in that classroom with you.
I can see it now. Y'all need to be quiet because I want to learn something.
I am a graduate of Orange High and a mentor as well as a student at Golden Ciphers. And my question to you would basically be, what are you doing and what do you think should be done to inform these students that want to learn about the 7 things that they need to become successful students? And also, are you informing them about the organizations that can help them gain that?
Okay. As far as what I'm doing about those 7 attitudes, skills, and behaviors that I've mentioned, I actually try to do as much as I can. Not that it would get into the hands or in front of everyone, but I write about it, I publish it, I try to get it into as many journals as possible. Now, that might be a step away. Another thing that I do, and that I do frequently in the city of Cleveland, I often get invited to staff developments in the various schools here in the building. And I also want to talk about it, conduct staff developments there. Luckily, many of your teachers from all of these areas, not just Cleveland, but all of the suburban areas, they attend Cleveland State. So I have an opportunity to talk with them about these ideas. And I also get directly in the schools, in some of the schools. I do Cleveland, East Cleveland. I was out in Lorraine City Schools yesterday talking about these ideas. So I try not to only write about it and talk about it, but I try to go into the schools and participate in helping teachers learn how they can help children to develop these habits, skills, attitudes. You have one other part of your question.
I would just like to jump in
ahead.
and say the reading part. If you're in a non-productive, find yourself in a non-productive situation, you can always read on your own. I encourage my students to do, homework is like something people don't even deal with, but go home and take that lesson that someone may have been talking that you couldn't get, and read. If you get into extensive reading every night, that is your best bet to become a scholar.
Did we answer your question?
Yeah, the second part, I'll basically rephrase it for you. Do you possibly think that organizations, like I can speak for myself, Golden Cypress has helped me a lot, in terms of the trouble side. A lot of leadership skills, mentoring skills, everything I need to know to become, at least in my eyes, a decent person in the community. So do you think something like that should be spread around?
Yeah, like the bridge program.
Dr. Harris.
Right. Cleveland Metropolitan School District has many initiatives to help students be successful, like the bridge program. We have programs that provide tutoring. We have programs that provide activities at night, on weekends, mentors. You may benefit from having a mentor, not only to help you academically, but help you to stay on the right road in terms of making decisions that many adolescents have to self-regulate around decisions. People are after students your age to do things that really you're not ready for, or may never want to do. But if you have a mentor, someone to talk to, and even, try to have those conversations with your parents or guardians about issues around sex, drugs, all these issues, parenting, people need to postpone some of these decisions that are conflicting with you becoming academically successful.
And mentoring is as important as anything that will happen in the life of a young child, because frequently it may not be something that a teacher or administrator says that changes a young person's life. It might be something that just an adult who cares about them mentioned to them that inspired them to be better. There are programs that are not enough. I know, like out in Lorraine, there's this program for troubled children, or for any child, but it's called 100 Black Men, that they are working on, where they're trying to connect and build relationships, especially between young black males and adult black males. Some have been started in probably not that particular program, but in almost every school district in Northeast Ohio, there are probably some examples of that. They may not be 100, but there are some examples of that, and I do think it's very important.
And become involved in sports, positive, you can get positive role models through sports as well.
My name is Taylor Austin, and I'm from John Adams High School. My question is, do you believe if there was no dress code, more students will come to school? Because a lot of students don't have funds to buy clothes, so they drop out. And what do you think as a team we can do to help students that don't come to school because they're afraid of people, what they might think?
Okay, the dress code issue first. Most schools do have a place where you can go and get some type of voucher or assistance with a uniform. My particular school, we do not have uniforms because of, the financial piece. Promise Academy is not a uniform school. But in terms of your question, you can get help if you go to your principal, secretary in the school, and ask, is there anywhere I can get help with the uniform? I know when I was at other high schools, they actually had a rack of shirts and pants and things that they would lend students.
She also asked about students who are afraid to come to school. Was it because of
bullying?
Was that it? Go ahead.
We constantly deal with that as administrators. I had someone mention something similar to that effect to me this morning, and I said we would deal with it, and we did. And it's something you need to let people know because these problems do not go away. We have a responsibility as administrators to have mediation sessions. And, you know, if there are students that continue to have that negative impact on the school, then possibly we could work to have a change of address for them.
Yeah. As far as bullying, there's no easy answer because bullying is real. And if you're the person being bullied, and if you are scared, then you are scared. And somebody telling you, oh, it'll pass, that might not be that much help. I guess immediately you just have to make sure that a responsible adult is aware that you do take your problem to them. And as long as you are being bullied, as long as you are scared, you take it to them every single day until they can help you to work through it and for it to stop.
And also tell your parents or some other adult to advocate for you if that principal or teacher is not listening to you. Have an adult go advocate for you.
Hi, my name is Justin Ho from High Tech Academy. I'm a senior. I was wondering, how do you think the achievement gaps managed to last so long and go untreated?
I'll let my colleagues start.
Okay. That's a tough question. That's an excellent question, so I can only give you my opinion. My opinion is that we have let some of our people down. Now, I normally don't say this in public, but since we are here and we are friends, I will say this. All of the black gentlemen in here, raise your hand. I think in a lot of ways, we dropped the ball. We dropped the ball because there have been too many of us that did not demand the best education for our children. There are too many of us who did not go to parent meetings, that did not provide enough relationship development with our children, and simply did not demand the best for them. Now, there are many, many other factors, and like I said earlier, there's enough responsibility and blame to go around. But I think we must look at ourselves first before we look to some other place. I also think, and guys, you can get mad at me if you want. All the young black females in here, raise your hand. I think that those hands that you see, and I can say the same thing about the young white females, but I think the hands that you see are some of the strongest people on this planet. And my issue is, gentlemen, because we have not provided the support in terms of family, child development, child rearing that we have, because we do have strong black women, I think we just kind of rested on that because we do know that.
You need to become involved in the political process, because if you're not there to raise these issues, they will not get solved.
Good afternoon. My name is Alex King, a member of the City Club Youth Forum Council. I am a junior at Sugar and Falls High School. Today at the City Club of Cleveland Youth Forum, we've been listening to Dr. Frederick Hampton and Dr. Cordelia Harris. Before we go, we'd like to ask you to fill out your surveys and return them at the door. We'd also like to invite you to our November 16th forum, where Sister Helen Prejean will be speaking about the death penalty. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all. This forum is now adjourned.